the leaves are falling off the trees. Everything's turning brown, getting colder, getting darker. But yet somehow we know that there's still life in all of this death. And the Christian walk is no different. We know that there's life in the death that we will eventually suffer. So this week we're going to talk about what that life in death looks like, how we can live in it now, and what it means for our futures. Hey guys, it's Eric with Aparche Ministries, and we're finishing up our series on autumn this week, and just in time because it is getting real cold out there. We're in New England, so the foliage is like basically stopped. It goes through like this beautiful like green to red, orange, yellow sort of thing, and then everything that's left on the trees turns brown, and then it just dies and falls in the street or in your yard. But we're at that part now, so like the beauty, the like, you know, fanfare of autumn has passed us, and we're in like the gross part where, you know, hope your leaf blower works. So anyway, we're finishing up this week. We're going to be talking about the idea of life in death. So we started out talking about change, how there's beauty in change, and then we talked about in our special episode, we talked about how there's light in the darkness, and then we talked last week about how there's happiness in the harvest, that this hard work that we do as part of our life for God, that there's happiness in it. And this week we're going to talk about maybe the most important thing. I would seriously consider it to be one of the most important things about the Christian life, and that's this idea of life in death. So, you know, and Paul says, and this is like one of our verses that we named our channel after, is that the resurrection of Christ that we share in, if that resurrection didn't happen, if our future resurrection doesn't happen, then there's no point to any of this. So the idea of life in death, life in death, I'm going to say life in death a lot, and it's going to sound like life and death a lot. Sorry. That idea is like foundational to Christianity, and it's super, super important for us to grasp. So remember, there's life in death. All right, so before I jump into this video, you know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the giveaway. So like the channel, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. We have been around for a few months now. We're really not seeing a lot of subscribers at this point, but we are so excited. We know that God's going to bless this ministry. We just want it to be a blessing to you. Even though we only have a few subscribers, I get these comments from people in person that, you know, oh, well, you know, my dad watches every week, or like I've been watching every week, and I'm just so blessed by it. So like one, two, you know, like one-offs here and there, and it's really special to me. And I always have said that if one person's life can be changed, then the ministry is totally worth it. So if one person out there, if your life is being changed by this, then it's totally worth it. We love you. We're here for you, that one person, or 50 people, or 100 people, or maybe someday thousands of people, or whatever. We're really not in it for the numbers, but we just really want to know that we're making a difference. So if we're making a difference in your life and you haven't subscribed yet, please, please, please subscribe. It's incredibly important to us. It takes you literally no time. You just hit the subscribe button. If you turn on the bell, that means that you'll get a little notification when we have a new episode up on the channel. So that's a good idea too. And if you like this video, leave a thumbs up. That helps too. So the giveaway, we are giving away a Jesus-centered Bible. The Jesus-centered Bible is an awesome tool for seeing Jesus on every page of the Bible. You know, because Jesus says that the whole law and the prophets pointed to him. That's what he says. And so if that's true, then we should be able to read Jesus in the Old Testament, and obviously we should see Jesus in the New Testament. So we'd love to give away one of those Bibles at 100 subscribers. So, all right, that being said, let's jump into this video today. Life in death. We're talking about autumn. There's life in death. There's this really famous photo, and maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. It's called the pale blue dot. And the pale blue dot is this beautiful picture. You should Google it. It's black, just picture black all around. There's a red streak, and then in the middle there's this tiny little, like 1 pixel of it is blue. This picture, you may or may not know, the pale blue dot, is the furthest away picture of Earth that has ever been taken. And I really love it. This is my favorite photo of all time. I mean, you would never know what you were looking at if you looked at it. But yeah, this pale blue dot. So, you know, and there's a lot of famous people that have commented on this video and stuff like that, or on this video. I hope some famous people comment on this video. on this photo, the pale blue dot. And I was looking at it, and I'm thinking about this week's sermon, this week's video, and I'm going, man, there's one thing that really is universally true about all of us, and it's that we're gonna die. We're born dying. We come into this world, and we're just on a countdown. And I'm not saying that like your time is set or anything like that. I'm not, talking about being a predeterminalist, but like the idea is you are going to die, and you're going to die. Your soul, your spirit will separate from your body at some point, and who you are will change fundamentally. There's a part of us that lives on, and there's a part of us that is done. That is the equalizer. I'm looking at this pale blue dot, and I'm going, man, everyone in that picture has or will die. All of the matter in that picture that'll eventually become human beings, right? That's how it works. We eat stuff and we grow and whatever. All of that matter will turn into a human being, and then that human being will die. Every human being that's ever died is in that picture, buried, decomposed, whatever. These bodies, they're not built to last. We are going to die. Everyone who's ever lived has died. And yeah, I know, you talk to me, Bible scholars, let me know about the two folks that haven't died, maybe arguably, possibly a third. But like everyone dies. Everyone dies. So, man, gloom and doom on the channel this week. But that's the great equalizer. Everyone dies. Everyone dies. Everyone dies. But the point of Christianity is that there's life in that death. So I want to jump into Ephesians 2, 1 through 10. I'm going to read this, and we're just going to chat about what this whole life in death thing means. Paul's writing this letter to the church at Ephesus. The church at Ephesus was special to Paul. He spent several years there, and they were kind of like the all-star church, right? Like John was there too. Like they had some big names go through their church, and so they're kind of like the cream of the crop in a lot of ways. And so Paul is writing to them as Christians, and he says, once you were dead because of your disobedience and your many sins once. You used to live in sin, just like the rest of the world, obeying the devil, the commander of the powers of the unseen world. He's the spirit at work in the hearts of those who refuse to obey God. All of us used to live that way, following the passionate desires and inclinations of our sinful nature. By our very nature, we were subject to God's anger, just like everyone else. So, to pause here, we've talked about in previous weeks that we're born broken, that we're born in darkness. And what Paul is adding to that equation is, in brokenness and in darkness, we are born dead. We're born into this world dead. Physically, we're alive. Spiritually, if you're not picking up the figurative language here, spiritually, we are dead. So he goes on to say, but God is so rich in mercy, and he loved us so much that even though we were dead because of our sins, he gave us life when he raised Christ from the dead. It's only by God's grace that you've been saved. For he's raised us from the dead, along with Christ, and seated us with him in the heavenly realms because we are united with Christ Jesus. So God can point to us in all future ages as examples of the incredible wealth of his grace and the kindness towards us, as shown in all he has done for us who are united with Jesus Christ. So, we're born in brokenness and in darkness, we're dead, but God has this plan, and this plan brings us back to life. That's what Paul's saying. He said that God had a plan to bring you back to life. So we're born dead, God has a plan. We're born dead because of our own actions, we're born dead because of our inherited guilt, we're born dead, but God has a plan. And he goes on to say, God saved you by his grace when you believed, and you can't take credit for it. It's a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we've done, so none of us can boast about it. We're God's masterpiece. I love that. We're God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things he had planned for us long ago. All right, so now we're born in brokenness and darkness. We're born dead. God has a plan to bring us back to life, And there's nothing we can do to earn it, but we don't have to. That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're talking about our death. We're talking about how there's life in death, right? So we're born dead, but somehow there's a plan for life in that. So don't lose sight of the overall theme here, life in death. All right, so let's talk about this. What did Paul say? He said, grace is God's gift. You can't earn it. There's nothing we can do to buy it. Grace is God's gift. Healing is God's gift. That brokenness can heal. It's God's gift. Life is God's gift. So light, healing, and life for our darkness, our brokenness, and our death. Those are the gift of God. And all he asks for in return for those things is our faith. So we're born dead. And all that we have to do to be made alive is believe. That faith, it needs to be a faith that we're born broken, right? Like a belief that we're born broken. The way we're born is not good enough. Paul says you were once dead in your sin. It is not good enough. And there's a lot of people out there that want you to think that the way you were born is good enough. And we've talked about this already, but I'm just going to go over it again. You are not born physically good enough. You're born a little lump. Okay, I have a newborn daughter, and she's just a little lump. That's not good enough. Emotionally, I have a 2-year-old, and all he does when he wants things is screams and cries. That is not good enough. Mentally, neither one of my children can read. Neither one of my children can articulate their thoughts very well. That is not good enough. And spiritually, you are born dead. The Bible says you are born dead. That is not good enough. So you are not born good enough. Saying I was born this way or this way is not good enough. You were born dead. You were born broken, and you were born in darkness, and you're not alone, because everyone on that pale blue dot, everyone in that picture, myself, every person you know, every spiritual person you know, every unspiritual person you know, Christian, non-Christian, church, unchurched, all of us, we were born broken, we were born in the dark, and we were born dead. And your faith has to start there. Christian, if your faith doesn't start there, then it's empty. And non-Christian, if you're looking to move towards some kind of faith, start there. You are not good enough. From the beginning, you're not good enough. The next step of your faith should be this. Jesus came to change that. Jesus came to change that. Jesus didn't show up to say, hey, just so you know, God doesn't think you're good enough, and then take off. Jesus didn't show up and say, hey, by the way, you should be doing this, 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 and this, and then take off. Jesus didn't show up to say, hey, you guys are fine, you don't really need me, and then take off. Jesus didn't come to say, hey, I accept you, so you're fine, and then take off. No, Jesus did real work and had a real message about how there will be the righteous and there will be the unrighteous. And he said, I didn't come to judge, but there is a judgment coming. And he said, you'll never be good enough on your own. You must be born again. One of the Pharisees, and the Pharisees were the religious people that really, really hated Jesus. They were ultra in your face, over the top, crazy religious, horrible. I hate dealing with those kinds of people. It is just sickening. But one of them went to Jesus, snuck out to Jesus in the middle of the night. It was what's the deal? And Jesus is like, you have to be born again. So Jesus set the standard. He did not say, you can live however you want. I accept you, and I, I'll affirm however you want to live. You're fine. You're good. I've come here to die so that you can do whatever you want. That's not what Jesus said. Jesus came here in our brokenness and in our darkness and in our death, and he brought us healing and light and life. And your faith has to start with, I'm not good enough, and move immediately to, Jesus came to fix that. That's the next step. Jesus came to fix that. He died for us. Your faith needs to go there. You need to get that. You need to get that God, the life in death that I'm talking about today, starts with the death of God as man on your behalf. And then he rose from the dead. That's the real life. He was the first person to have life in death. Jesus rose from the dead. He rose from the dead so that you and I can also rise from the dead. That darkness, that brokenness, that death is overcome in that moment because Jesus overcame it with his own resurrection. And we join in that resurrection as the first fruits. That's where the word Aparche comes from, by the way. We live in that knowledge here on this station and in this community. We live in that knowledge that we share those first fruits of resurrection, and there's nothing more important than that. And sharing in that resurrection means having faith, and that faith leads to the next step. He died for us, he rose for us, and he can change us. It is not enough to meet Jesus and do whatever you want. Zero times does Jesus meet someone and not give them change and be blessed and have this life, or don't change and go on your merry way. Jesus says that at the end of time, there's a judgment. He says there's a judgment. And there's going to be the people over here that I know that have adopted my righteousness, that have taken God's righteousness onto them and done their best and repented and changed and tried to become more like me. And through the power of the Holy Spirit, we're transformed, right? There's that group that's been transformed, that lives that life that Jesus has for them. And there's the other group. And in that other group, there's people that have rejected Jesus. In that other group, there's people that have no interest in Jesus. In that other group, there are people that have met Jesus and claim Jesus and are not changed by Jesus. That's what he says. He says at the end, some of you are going to say, but didn't I love you? Didn't I do this? Didn't I do this? Didn't I do this? And he says, I never knew you. At the end of all of it, Jesus will separate those two groups. That's what he says. And this is not about getting out of this group just to be safe on this side. This is about a life that honors God, that gives itself back to God. We talked about Romans 12:1 a few weeks ago, right? Giving yourself as a holy sacrifice to God. We talked about that there's beauty in that change. That when we are transformed by God, it's the same as when the leaves go from green to yellow and orange and red. It's a beautiful change. There's a beautiful change that takes place if we allow it. But if we don't allow it, we're over here and we're going to say at the end of time, but God, didn't I do this and this and this and this and this? And Jesus is going to say, I never knew you. I never knew you. Because he gives us this option to change. And if we don't take that option, then our faith is empty. And that's what James means when he says faith without works is dead. Right? Paul here says you can't earn any of it. You can't earn any of it. Our works are not what earn anything. Our faith is what justifies us. Our faith is what causes God's grace to permeate into our darkness. And our works are demonstration of that faith. That is the biblical concept. And anyone who tells you that you can just claim Christ and do whatever you want, that person doesn't love you enough to say, Jesus wants a change in your life. Jesus doesn't want to strip us of our identity, take all of our interests away, make our life bland, make our life boring. That's not what Jesus wants. Jesus wants to give us what he called life abundant or overflowing life. That's what Jesus wanted to give us. It takes faith to say, I will put myself aside and give that life everything I have because I know it's better. And I'm not a perfect person, but the glimpses I've had at abundant life for myself have been the most rewarding and amazing things I could ever encounter. Jesus doesn't want us to just claim his name and be fine. You know, that's not what it is. That's just simply not what it is. And again and again and again, Jesus gives us that truth. He says it's not enough to just say, I'm with Jesus. He says that. He says that thing about I never knew you, right? How about their lips are near me, but their hearts are far away. Right? He separates out the wheat and the tares, or the wheat and the weeds. Again and again and again, Jesus says there is a line of distinction. And he wants everyone on the side of life. That's what Jesus wants. But God loves us enough to give us a choice. And we've talked about that too. That choice is the origin of all kinds of evil and calamity and disaster. But it's also our choice to claim life, to choose love, to choose Jesus. So God loves us enough to give us a choice, and he loves us enough to say we are not born good enough. We have to change. It's just the fact. So we talked about these things on this channel, right? We're not born good enough. That was the first sermon there, talking about beauty and change. And if you haven't seen that, make sure you check it out. And then there's an enormous amount of need in this world. We talked about that with happiness in the harvest. The world is dark, and the world can't make its own light. That was our special episode, that live episode that we did. And, we talked about that the world can't make its own light. And then this one, we're born dead, and no good thing that we do, no good deed is going to fix that. You can't do CPR on yourself. You can't hook yourself to the defibrillator, right? When you are dead, you can't fix it. And that's the same spiritually as it is physically. You cannot fix your spiritual death. We need an outside help. All right, so look, we're not born good enough, but Jesus makes us good enough. There's an extreme amount of need in this world, and Jesus meets those needs. The world can't make its own darkness. Jesus brought light, and we're dead, and nothing we do can fix that. Jesus brings us back. Jesus is the answer to everything. We've talked about autumn. Jesus is the answer to the autumn of our lives, a time of change, a time of darkness, a time of harvest, a time of this apparent death. Jesus is the answer to all of those things. Jesus is the answer to our autumn. And we're closing out this series. This is the last video of this series. And look, if you haven't gotten it yet, Jesus wants a change in your life. Jesus empowers you. He empowers you. He invests in you. He invested his life. He invested his very life in you. He loves you. Jesus wants this change in your life, and all you have to do is have the faith that he is Lord, that he came, that he died, that he rose again, and that change that he wants for your life is for your benefit. It honors God. It glorifies God. Don't get me wrong. Those are important things. But the change in your life is for your benefit. You are not good enough. And that does not mean that God doesn't love you. It doesn't mean that we don't love you. Here at the channel, we love you. We love you. We love you enough to tell you that there's a change required. We love you enough to tell you that spiritual growth is something that we're responsible for. At the end of your physical life, you will answer to God for what you did with your soul, how you cultivated this beautiful internal thing that he gave you. The Bible talks about two kinds of life, the bios and the zeos, right? Bios is this physical life, right? I often tell people I'm driving my body like it's stolen, because I've got all kinds of like ailments and aches and pains and creaks and breaks and whatever. And then the zeos is your spirit. You cannot drive your spirit like it's stolen, because someday we'll get a new body, a new physical body. But what we do with our spirit, what we do with our soul here and now, that is what we get. If we invest our soul with Jesus, if we say, the change that you want in my life is a good change, it's a God-honoring change, it's a self-preserving change, it's a healthy change, and it's a loving change. If we see that and we pursue it, then our souls will be with Christ forever. And he says, if you don't, I never knew you. I never knew you. We love you enough to tell you that, and it's never a condemnation. We never say like, well, we hope you don't choose Christ, or, well, if you don't choose Christ, then that's your problem. That's not us. That's not us. And those who will tell you that you're fine the way you are will say that there's only one of two ways, right? They'll say either you're a rules guy or you're a grace guy, but that's not how it is. Grace exists within these boundaries. It's over the top, overflowing, never-ending, infinite grace. And in grace, God says, yeah, but don't do this and don't do this. That is not how you find life. And that's what this sermon's all about, finding life in death. You're born on this path to death, and what you do between your birth and your physical death makes all the difference in the world. And we want to help you with that. We want to invest in you. We want to be here for you. We want you to have your best life. And if there's ever anything we can do to help you have your best life, to invest in you, to come alongside you, to hold your hand, to be there with you through the good and the bad and the tough and all of those things as we move through this life and into the end of our lives. We just want to be there for you. We want to help disciple you. We want to help you grow into Christ-likeness and honor God through that. So if there's ever anything we can do, please reach out. We're just so passionate about seeing people grow in Christ. And we love you guys very, very much. And that's all that I have for you this week. That's all that I have for you for this series. We're looking forward to coming back next week with a brand new series. Remember, like the channel, subscribe to the channel, give a thumbs up on this video. We would really appreciate it. And if you share this video, that would be really awesome. If you're kind of nervous about sharing the gospel with people, share this video. And that's a great way for you to share the gospel, in that you're presenting what we presented today to other people. So we love you guys. And we're looking forward to coming back and talking to you next week. If you don't follow us on social media, follow us on social media for encouraging content every single day. Hannah's working hard to make that and put that out to you every single day. Thanks again, guys. We love you, and we'll see you again really, really soon.